Welcome everyone. Today, you are about to hear one of the most powerful and dramatic stories in European history. This is not just the story of a soldier. This is not just the story of a king. This is the story of a man who rose from almost nothing and almost ruled the entire continent of Europe. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. He was born on a small island. He was not rich. He was not famous. He was not loved by everyone. But he had something stronger than wealth. He had ambition. Napoleon believed that he was meant for greatness. Even as a young boy, he felt different from others. He believed that history would remember his name. And history did. He became a general at 24. The ruler of France. The emperor of a powerful empire. The fear of Europe. But power is dangerous. The higher you rise, the harder you fall. Napoleon experienced victory like no other leader of his time. But he also experienced defeat like no other. His life teaches us about discipline, strategy, leadership, pride, and consequences. And if you are learning English, this story will help you grow. This biography is written in clear and simple English, B1 level. You will improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and follow a long and powerful story step by step. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1. The Boy from Corsica. Napoleon Bonaparte was born in 1769 on the island of Corsica. Corsica was not a powerful place. It was not Paris. It was not Rome. It was a small island in the Mediterranean Sea. The island had just become part of France. Before that, it belonged to Italy. This is important, because Napoleon did not grow up feeling fully French. He felt different. His family belonged to minor nobility. They had a noble title, but very little money. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, believed in education. He believed that knowledge could create power. So when Napoleon was only 9 years old, he sent him to France to study. Imagine that moment. A small boy leaves his home. He leaves his language. He leaves his culture. He arrives in a foreign land. At school, Napoleon felt isolated. He spoke French poorly. He had a strong accent. Other boys laughed at him. They called him strange. They mocked his name. Napoleon did not fight them. He did not try to become popular. Instead, he became silent. And silence became his weapon. He stopped trying to impress others. He stopped trying to belong. Instead, he focused on something else. He focused on mastery. Napoleon read constantly. He studied history. He admired Alexander the Great. He admired Julius Caesar. He admired Hannibal, the man who crossed the Alps with elephants. He did not just read their stories. He analyzed them. He asked himself, how did they move armies? How did they inspire men? How did they win impossible battles? Even as a teenager, Napoleon did not think small. He did not dream of comfort. He dreamed of greatness. At military academy, he chose artillery. Artillery was complex. It required mathematics. It required precision. It required patience. Napoleon loved structure. He loved control. He loved systems. He was not physically impressive. He was not tall. He was not charming. But he had intensity. Teachers noticed his seriousness. He rarely laughed. He rarely wasted time. He looked like someone who was waiting. Waiting for something bigger. Then history gave him that opportunity. Chapter 2. Revolution and Fire. In 1789, France exploded. The French Revolution began. The people were angry. They were hungry. They were poor. The king, Louis XVI, lived in luxury while citizens struggled. Taxes were high. Food was expensive. The government was corrupt. The people had enough. They stormed the Bastille prison. They demanded freedom. They demanded equality. They demanded change. At first, many believed the revolution would bring justice. But revolutions are unpredictable. Power shifts quickly. Soon, political groups began fighting each other. Fear spread across the country. Thousands were executed. This period was called the Reign of Terror. France was unstable. Armies from Austria and Prussia attacked from outside. Inside the country, leaders were being killed. Chaos ruled. But for Napoleon, chaos meant opportunity. In 1793, the city of Toulon rebelled. Royalist forces invited the British Navy to help them. This was dangerous. If the British controlled Toulon, France would be weakened. Napoleon, still a young officer, proposed a bold plan. He suggested placing artillery in strategic positions. He calculated distances. He predicted enemy movements. His plan worked. The British were forced to leave. Toulon was saved. Napoleon became a general at 24. Think about that. At 24, he was already leading men into battle. His rise was fast. But it was not luck. It was preparation meeting chaos. Soon, he was sent to lead the army of Italy. The situation was terrible. His soldiers were starving. They lacked boots. They lacked supplies. Morale was low. Napoleon stood before them. He spoke clearly. He said, "Soldiers, you are hungry and poorly dressed. But I will lead you to fertile lands. There you will find honor and wealth." He gave them belief. Belief is powerful. Napoleon moved quickly. He attacked unexpectedly. He divided enemy forces. He used speed as a weapon. He won battle after battle. His victories shocked Europe. He defeated armies that were larger than his own. He understood something important. War is not about numbers. It is about movement. It is about surprise. It is about psychology. Napoleon did not just fight enemies. He entered their minds. His soldiers began to admire him deeply. He remembered their names. He praised bravery. He rewarded talent. They felt seen. They felt important. They felt invincible. Newspapers began to write about him. His image grew. He was no longer just a general. He was becoming a symbol. But symbols can become dangerous. Because once a man tastes glory, he rarely wants less. And Napoleon did not want less. He wanted control. And soon, he would take it. Chapter 3. The Rise to Absolute Power. By the late 1790s, France was tired. The revolution had removed the king. But it had not brought stability. The country was controlled by a government called the Directory. The Directory was weak. It was full of corruption. Many people did not trust it. France still faced enemies outside the country. Austria, Britain, and other European powers wanted to destroy the revolution. Inside the country, there were also problems. The economy was unstable. There was inflation. There was political tension everywhere. France needed strong leadership. And Napoleon knew it. After his success in Italy, Napoleon was already famous. He was seen as a military genius. In 1798, he led an expedition to Egypt. He wanted to weaken Britain by attacking its trade routes. The Egyptian campaign was not fully successful. The British Navy defeated the French fleet. But Napoleon returned to France before things became worse. Why? Because he understood something important. France was ready for change. In 1799, Napoleon made one of the most important decisions of his life. He decided to take power. This event is known as the coup of 18 Brumaire. A coup means a sudden takeover of government. Napoleon did not attack the country with soldiers. He used politics, influence, and fear. He convinced important leaders that France needed strong leadership. He presented himself as the solution. The Directory collapsed. Napoleon became first consul of France. Officially, France was still a republic. But in reality, Napoleon now controlled everything. He controlled the army, the government, the political decisions. He worked day and night. He reformed the economy. He reorganized the education system. He improved infrastructure. One of his most important achievements was the Napoleonic Code. The Napoleonic Code created clear laws. It supported equality before the law. It protected property rights. Even today, many legal systems in Europe are influenced by this code. Napoleon did not only think about war. He thought about structure. He believed that power must be organized. People began to feel safe again. France became stronger. And Napoleon became more confident. In 1802, he was named consul for life. This meant he could rule without elections. But that was still not enough for him. Napoleon believed that France needed stability. He also believed that he was the only man who could provide it. In 1804, something extraordinary happened. Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France. He did not allow the Pope to crown him. Instead, he took the crown with his own hands and placed it on his head. This act was symbolic. It meant, "My power comes from me." He was no longer just a leader of a republic. He was an emperor. Europe was shocked. Kings and queens watched carefully. They were afraid. Because Napoleon was not born into royalty. He had created himself. And now, he wanted to reshape Europe. His ambition had no limits. But ambition can become dangerous. Power changes people. And Napoleon was about to test the limits of his power. Chapter 4. Emperor of Europe. By 1804, Napoleon was no longer just a general. He was Emperor Napoleon I of France. Many European kings believed he would fail. They thought he was just a revolutionary soldier. But they were wrong. Napoleon was not satisfied with ruling only France. He wanted to make France the most powerful nation in Europe. And soon, war began again. Britain, Austria, and Russia formed a coalition against France. They wanted to stop Napoleon before he became too powerful. Napoleon did not wait for them to attack. He moved first. In 1805, he led his army into Central Europe. One of his greatest victories happened near a small town called Austerlitz. The Battle of Austerlitz is often called Napoleon's greatest masterpiece. He faced two powerful armies, Russia and Austria. His army was smaller. But Napoleon used intelligence instead of numbers. He pretended to be weak. He allowed his enemies to believe they had the advantage. Then, at the perfect moment, he attacked the center of their army. The enemy forces were divided. They were confused. They were surrounded. The victory was complete. After Austerlitz, Europe began to fear him. Austria surrendered. The Holy Roman Empire collapsed. Napoleon reorganized German states and created the Confederation of the Rhine. He placed his brothers and loyal generals on different European thrones. Spain, Italy, Holland. His family ruled large parts of Europe. Napoleon believed in control. He believed that if he controlled governments, he could control the continent. At the same time, he improved France. He built roads, strengthened education, created efficient administration, supported science and culture. He rewarded talent, not birth. In Napoleon's system, a poor man could become a general if he was capable. This was revolutionary. Many people admired him. They saw him as a modern leader. But there was one country he could not defeat: Britain. The British Navy was stronger than France's navy. Napoleon tried to invade Britain, but it was impossible. So he created a different strategy. He introduced the continental system. This system blocked trade between Britain and European countries. He hoped that Britain would become economically weak. But this plan created problems. Many European nations depended on trade with Britain. They suffered economically. Some countries began to resist Napoleon's control. In Spain, a rebellion started. The Spanish War became long and brutal. French soldiers were attacked by local fighters. This was the beginning of slow decline. At the same time, Napoleon's personal life changed. He divorced his wife, Josephine, because she could not give him a son. He wanted an heir. He married Marie-Louise of Austria. Now he had a son. Napoleon felt stronger than ever. By 1810, he controlled most of Europe. From Portugal to Poland. His influence was everywhere. He believed he had achieved destiny. But there was one more powerful enemy: Russia. And that decision, to attack Russia, would change everything. Chapter 5. The Russian Disaster. By 1812, Napoleon controlled most of Europe. He had defeated Austria. He had defeated Prussia. He had forced many countries to follow him. But Russia was different. At first, Russia was Napoleon's ally. Tsar Alexander I had signed an agreement with him. But the alliance did not last. Russia suffered under the continental system. Its economy was damaged. Russian leaders became unhappy with Napoleon's control. Soon, the relationship between France and Russia became cold. Napoleon saw this as betrayal. He believed that Russia must obey him. So he made one of the most important decisions of his life. He decided to invade Russia. It was 1812. Napoleon gathered the largest army Europe had ever seen. More than 600,000 soldiers. They came from France, Germany, Italy, Poland, and other territories under his control. This army was powerful. But Russia was vast. The Russian army did not fight directly at first. Instead, they retreated deeper into their country. They used a strategy called scorched earth. This meant they destroyed food, villages, supplies, so that Napoleon's army could not survive. As the French army moved forward, they found empty towns. There was no food. There were no resources. The soldiers became tired. They became hungry. They marched for weeks. Finally, near Moscow, the two armies met in a massive battle called the Battle of Borodino. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the time. Thousands died on both sides. Napoleon technically won. But the victory was not decisive. Soon after, he entered Moscow. But Moscow was empty. The Russian people had left. Then something shocking happened. The city began to burn. Fires destroyed much of Moscow. Napoleon waited in the city for weeks. He hoped the Russian Tsar would ask for peace. But no message came. Winter was approaching. Russian winter is brutal. The temperature dropped far below freezing. Napoleon had never planned for such conditions. His army was not prepared for extreme cold. There were not enough winter clothes. There was not enough food. Finally, Napoleon decided to retreat. The retreat was a nightmare. Snow covered the land. Soldiers froze to death. Horses died. Many soldiers were too weak to continue. Russian forces attacked the retreating army. Every day, more men died. By the time Napoleon returned to France, his great army was destroyed. From 600,000 soldiers, only about 100,000 survived. It was a catastrophe. Europe saw weakness for the first time. His enemies realized something important. Napoleon could be defeated. Prussia joined Russia. Austria joined them. Britain supported the coalition. Napoleon fought bravely. But now he was fighting for survival. In 1813, he was defeated at the Battle of Leipzig. This was called the Battle of Nations. His empire began to collapse. Countries that once obeyed him now turned against him. In 1814, enemy armies entered Paris. Napoleon had no choice. He abdicated, he gave up power. He was sent into exile on the island of Elba. Many believed his story was finished. But Napoleon was not ready to disappear. Not yet. Chapter 6. The 100 Days and Waterloo. In 1814, Napoleon was sent to the island of Elba. Elba was a small island near Italy. It was not a prison. Napoleon was still called emperor, but only of that small island. He had about 1,000 soldiers. He had a small palace. He had some freedom. But he had lost Europe. In France, the old royal family returned. King Louis XVIII became king. Many people hoped for stability. But the new government was weak. Soldiers missed Napoleon. Many citizens felt disappointed. France was not as strong as before. Napoleon heard the news. And he saw opportunity. In February 1815, something unbelievable happened. Napoleon escaped from Elba. With only a small group of soldiers, he returned to France. This moment became legendary. As he marched through France, soldiers were sent to arrest him. But when they faced him, Napoleon walked forward alone. He opened his coat and said, "If you want to kill your emperor, here I am." No one fired. Instead, soldiers joined him. One by one, regiments returned to his side. By the time he reached Paris, the king had already fled. Napoleon was emperor again. This period is called the 100 Days. He ruled again for about 3 months. But Europe was terrified. Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia immediately formed another coalition. They would not allow Napoleon to rebuild his empire. War began again. Napoleon moved quickly. He wanted to defeat his enemies separately, before they could unite. In June 1815, he faced British and Prussian forces near a small village in Belgium called Waterloo. The Battle of Waterloo would decide everything. Napoleon was confident. He had won many battles before. But things went wrong. It had rained heavily the night before. The ground was wet and muddy. This slowed his artillery. The British army, led by the Duke of Wellington, defended strong positions. The fighting lasted all day. Napoleon attacked again and again. But the British line did not break. Then something critical happened. Prussian forces arrived on the battlefield. Napoleon's army was now attacked from 2 sides. His soldiers fought bravely. But they were exhausted. The battle was lost. Waterloo was not just a defeat. It was the end. Napoleon returned to Paris. He tried to organize resistance. But there was no hope. He abdicated again. This time, Europe did not take risks. He was sent far away, to the island of St. Helena. St. Helena was remote. It was in the Atlantic Ocean, far from Europe. There would be no escape. Napoleon lived there under strict supervision. His health slowly declined. He spent his final years writing and reflecting. He believed history would judge him fairly. In 1821, Napoleon died at the age of 51. Some say he died of stomach cancer. Some believe he was poisoned. But one thing is certain. His life had changed Europe forever. From a small island boy to Emperor of Europe, to prisoner of a distant island. Few lives have been so dramatic. Few leaders have risen so high and fallen so far. Conclusion. The man who changed Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte's life was full of extremes. He experienced glory like very few men in history. He also experienced failure on a massive scale. He rose faster than almost anyone before him. And he fell harder than most. But what makes Napoleon so important? It is not only his battles. It is not only his victories. It is not only his defeat at Waterloo. It is the system he created. Napoleon reorganized France. He modernized the legal system. He supported education and science. He built roads, institutions, and administration. The Napoleonic Code influenced many countries in Europe and even beyond. His ideas about merit, that talent is more important than birth, changed society. Before Napoleon, power belonged mostly to noble families. After Napoleon, people began to believe that ability mattered more than family name. Even his enemies adopted some of his reforms. Europe was never the same again. But Napoleon also teaches us something deeper. Power is addictive. Ambition can push a person to greatness. But unchecked ambition can also lead to destruction. Napoleon believed he was destined to rule Europe. He believed he understood strategy better than anyone. For many years, he was right. But then pride entered the story. The invasion of Russia was not necessary. It was driven by ego. Waterloo was not just a military defeat. It was the final result of overconfidence. Napoleon once said, "Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools." This sentence shows his mindset. He did not believe in limits. And for a long time, he seemed unstoppable. But history teaches us something important. Every leader has limits. Every empire has limits. Even the strongest must respect reality. Napoleon's life is not simply a story of war. It is a story of discipline. It is a story of vision. It is a story of control. And it is a story of consequences. He was not perfect. He made serious mistakes. But he shaped an era. Even today, more than 200 years later, people still study him. Military academies analyze his strategies. Historians debate his character. Writers describe his ambition. Very few names remain powerful across centuries. Napoleon is one of them. He did not simply live in history. He became history. 7 Life Lessons from Napoleon Bonaparte. Now let us take 7 powerful lessons from his life. 1. Discipline creates power. Napoleon was not the strongest boy. He was not the most popular student. But he studied constantly. He prepared. He planned. He believed that preparation wins battles before they begin. Lesson: success is rarely an accident. It is built through daily discipline. 2. Think strategically, not emotionally. Napoleon rarely acted without a plan. He studied maps. He predicted enemy movements. He attacked at the right moment. He did not rely on luck. Lesson: do not react to every situation emotionally. Pause. Think. Plan. 3. Use weakness as advantage. As a young officer, Napoleon was underestimated. He was small. He had an accent. He was different. But being underestimated allowed him to grow quietly. Lesson: if people do not take you seriously, use it as your advantage. 4. Move fast when opportunity appears. When France was unstable, Napoleon acted. He did not wait forever. He understood timing. Lesson: opportunities do not last forever. When the moment is right, act with confidence. 5. Build systems, not just victories. Napoleon did not only win battles. He created laws. He reorganized government. He improved education. That is why his influence lasted longer than his empire. Lesson: winning once is not enough. Build structures that survive you. 6. Pride can destroy genius. Napoleon's invasion of Russia was driven by pride. He believed he could not fail. He ignored warnings. That decision destroyed his army. Lesson: confidence is powerful, but arrogance is dangerous. 7. Legacy matters more than power. Napoleon lost his empire. He died far from France. But his ideas survived. His reforms survived. His name survived. Lesson: true success is not about temporary control. It is about lasting impact. Napoleon Bonaparte was not born an emperor. He created himself. He believed in greatness. He achieved it. He lost it. And still, he remains unforgettable. If you are learning English, this story has helped you follow complex ideas, understand history, and improve your listening step by step. But beyond language, this story is a mirror. Ask yourself, where is my ambition leading me? Am I disciplined? Am I strategic? Am I controlled? Or am I ruled by pride? Because history does not only teach us about the past. It teaches us about ourselves. Thank you for listening. And remember, power is not only about strength. It is about discipline, clarity, and knowing when to stop.